Storbritannien fik den her folkeafstemning efter hårdt slid. Det er ikke sådan, at Cameron tænkte, hvor er det dejligt, nu skal vi stemme om EU. Nej, der blev dannet en forening, People's Pledge. People's Pledge kæmpede i lang tid hårdt for, at der skulle laves en britisk folkeafstemning. Systematisk gik man til værk, krævede et svar fra de forskellige kandidater til det britiske underhus. Ville de være med til at støtte en folkeafstemning?
My name is Jenny Jones. I'm a Green Party politician in Britain, and I'm a member of the House of Lords, the one and only Green Party member of the Lords. And I am a rebel in my party because I'm going to vote out in our referendum. I'm a rebel for several reasons. I have a long-held belief that the EU is extremely expensive, and that does offend me. The money that is spent on the politicians, on the travel, on the costs of both of the parliaments. The second reason is that there is so much waste. Some of the systems within the EU create phenomenal amounts of waste, food in particular, but other commodities as well. And the third reason, and this for me is the overwhelming reason, is the lack of democracy. Here in Britain, we've had unpopular policies, we've had unpopular parliaments, politicians, and by public opinion, public outcry, we have managed to change things so that in fact something like the poll tax that was brought in with Margaret Thatcher was actually overturned by the same parliament because the people hated it so much. But in the EU, a lot of decisions are taken by unelected people, and for me, TTIP, the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, is absolutely typical of the sort of thing that we have to avoid. It actually gives less democracy to all the countries involved. So for those three reasons, I'm voting out.
My name is Faria Khan, and I support Brexit because I think that we've had quite a long time of EU rule in England and the United Kingdom, and actually we've seen that we've lost a lot of our power. A lot of decisions can't be made on a local level. It has to be made in the conglomerate that is the EU, and then they tell us what we believe. And I think that as a junior doctor, it's really tough because actually a lot of the policies that would actually provide money for NHS staff and the NHS systems is lost because of all the bureaucracy that comes with it.
It's a contradiction to be pro-EU and anti-TTIP, because TTIP, behind it are the big corporations, especially American ones, and people here are also for it who have plenty of money. And the European Roundtable of Industrialists in Brussels has always campaigned and lobbied for further and deeper integration of the EU and to take away our rights, trade union rights, so that they undercut our wages and conditions. So it's a stitch-up between the transnational corporations in the European Roundtable of Industrialists and the lobbyists who are lobbying in Washington on behalf of their corporations. that is the stitch up. If they get their way, then they will press down wages and conditions in this country, lock the two markets together, and we will be in even deeper trouble.
Hello viewers, I'm Lee Rotherham. I've been a Eurosceptic campaigner for 20 odd years in Britain, in the UK, fighting for the national interest and for the interest of nations across the European Union. I am a Eurosceptic because I believe that the nation state is the best place as the home for democracy. I believe the EU is too big, its ambitions are dangerous, it is a system which is undemocratic, where powers are taken too far away from us, and which has demonstrated that its ambitions are too big for its capabilities. I'm part of the team which is fighting this referendum which we have in the UK, and I'd like to say a big thanks to you guys in Denmark who've made this possible, because your constant battling through referenda have slowed down the juggernaut which have given us the time over in the UK for us to have our own referendum. And we know from your experience how difficult it is to win these things, because you have the establishment and you have a lot of the big media and the big players who come out with a vested interest and say, no, you shouldn't be able to do this. You're silly, this whole democracy thing is a complete nonsense. But because of the fights which you've had and which you've won, we're here today now having this chance to have our say. And we hope that in turn, what we do and we say in our turn in these coming weeks gives you a chance to fight on as well. So thank you for your help, and let's get cracking on our side. Cheers.
I'm Anna Firth. I'm the chair of Women for Britain. I'm speaking from Speaker's Corner, where we have been campaigning for the UK to leave the European Union in June. We want to leave the European Union because it is fundamentally undemocratic, because it wastes £20 billion of our money every single year, and because it makes laws which have no cross-border dimension and should be made in our own parliament, and because it is holding back our trade. We now trade more with the rest of the world than we do with the European Union, yet we cannot make a trade deal with any other country. We have to rely on the European Union to do that for us, and the European Union in over 10 years has failed to make a single trade deal with China, with India, with the USA, with Canada. But to return to my fundamental point, it is at its very core, the European Commission is undemocratic. Its government, the commissioners, are unelected and unaccountable, and that is unacceptable to women in Britain.
Okay. Hello Lava and all my Danish friends, great to speak with you again. I am Kelvin Hopkins, Member of Parliament, the co-chair of Labour Leave and the Parliamentary Officer for Trade Unions against the EU, and we are obviously celebrating great success in our campaign for Britain to leave the EU. I hope very much that other countries in the European Union which will follow us, and we will eventually form a new association of independent democratic countries in Europe, working together for mutual benefit, but not governed by a bureaucracy in Brussels. That is what I think we should be doing, and I think it would work very well. Before the campaign, and indeed since the campaign, there's been the pro-EU obsessives have been arguing that it would be damaging for our economy, and in fact it would be, we might have an economic collapse. The opposite has been the case. Our economy is actually doing rather well. And it's not just me saying this. Lord King, the former governor of the Bank of England, has been pleased with Brexit and thinks the economy is doing very well. And Ashoka Modi, who's a former Deputy Director General for the IMF and for Europe, he has said he is amazed how much the economy is rebalancing itself. So I'm very happy about what has happened. I'm very optimistic about the future for Britain and indeed for the rest of Europe eventually. But I do hope that you and other countries will assert themselves democratically. Finally, can I bring you all greetings from the other campaigners on the Leave campaign. We're very, very cheered by what has happened and cheered by our success. So nice to speak with you. I look forward to meeting you all again sometime soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
We hope you'll have a great conference. The following week, on Saturday the 5th of November, is actually the Bruges Group's conference. We've actually got people over from Denmark that will be taking part and speaking, and you're all invited to come to London and take part and be at our conference. Bruges Group has been really grateful to the help from the people of Denmark. They came over to help us in the referendum campaign, helping at the grassroots level, campaigning, as well as training our activists, really helping out. The Danes have always been an inspiration to the people of Britain, and we can be working together on a new relationship for Britain, Denmark, once we're all outside of the European Union. At this rate, with Britain being out of the European Union soon and Norway out and other countries standing up to Brussels, you really need to get a move on and get out of the EU, because at this rate it will just be you and Sweden left in there, and you don't want that. Join us on the outside. Things are looking great. Have a good conference.
Greetings from the United Kingdom to our friends in Denmark, two countries with great tradition of governing themselves democratically. We've just been through a referendum where people tried to present it as a choice between democracy and prosperity. But fortunately, the British people were persuaded that far from being alternatives, democracy and prosperity go hand in hand. Because in a democracy, if the government doesn't enable its people to prosper, then they chuck it out. And that's really what upset most people about membership of the European Union, that we couldn't turf people out if they got it wrong. And clearly, as far as the Euro project is concerned, they've got it very wrong, and a lot of people, particularly in southern Europe, particularly young people, are suffering lost jobs, blighted lives, because of a political project pursued by people who are not really accountable and can never be voted out of office. So I hope now we're an independent country, we can make ourselves more prosperous, and partly by continuing freely to trade with our friends in Europe, but also for the first time exploiting the opportunities we have to open new trading relationships with the fast-growing but somewhat protected markets of Asia, Africa and Latin America. And also that we will be able to amend laws and regulations which might have been perfectly sensible in their intentions when they were passed within the European Union, but because circumstances have changed, or because circumstances in the United Kingdom were different from elsewhere, hampered us or were burdens on business. So we're looking forward to becoming a more prosperous country in future, but one which will retain very close and friendly relationships and links with you in Denmark.
Over the years, British people and Scandinavians have worked together on each other's campaigns. Why? Because leaving the European Union is an international vision. It's about change for the better. Now that you're having a campaign also to have a referendum so that Denmark can leave the European Union, join Britain, join Norway, join the rest of the world. Good luck to you. It's an inspiration.
So we are here 4 months on from the referendum. I was a local campaigner. I coordinated these areas in Ealing. There were 3 big areas with a lot of multicultural type of population. We managed to buck the trend in London in many of the local wards where actually we managed to get a leave vote, and the most important one, I suppose, for us locally was the leader of the council. We've got London Borough of Ealing, and we have a Labour councillor who is the leader, and his ward actually voted to leave the European Union, and that was the icing on the cake for us locally. However, there are other more important areas locally who nearly voted leave, and this was bucking the trend in London. What I suggest to the people in Denmark is to work from grassroots upwards, and you'll find that there are nooks and crannies in your country where you will get support which you wouldn't have thought you would have had previously, particularly from the the multicultural, the ethnics who are worried about the European Union. They are worried about living standards. What happens when you have masses of populations moving into areas is that they go down one rung on the ladder. So they are at the bottom of the pile and there's nowhere else for them to go.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank Denmark and the people of Denmark in 1992 for voting against the Maastricht Treaty. This made Euroscepticism in the United Kingdom respectable and inspired us to campaign until the result that we got on the 23rd of June. So thank you. The second thing I would like to say is that if you vote to leave the European Union, the world doesn't end. Everybody told us it would be a disaster and we would be ruined if we left. The Treasury, the Bank of England, the Americans all said it would be a catastrophe. But here we are, the economy is growing, consumer confidence is up, and the sun in late October is still shining. And the third thing to say is that actually democracy will ultimately always triumph. The bureaucrats, the elite, the no-betters who live in Brussels and tell us how to live our lives ultimately don't have the authority or the respectability to carry on governing. The people will and must decide. The UK has shown it is possible. I'm sure others will be thinking of following, but it is a happy time for us in this country. But we would not have been able to do it without the inspiration all those years ago from the Danish people. Thank you.